Hey, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday live for the week. This is our last one of 2023. Not because John Willis wasn't willing to go live next week, because it's my fault. It's all me. Am I a wimp?
Why? Why? Why are you not able to?
'Cause I'm going to be in California.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm going to go see my stepdad and my family. And yeah, I'm only there
My
for 3 days, but that's one of the 3 days.
Hey, that's awesome. That's more than I'm gonna step. That's more than I've been in California in a decade. Um,
Yeah,
my t-shirt guy came in, dropped shirts off Monday, and said, "Hey, I won't be able to be here next Monday." And I said, "Why?
yeah,
What's up?" And his wife was with him, and she goes, "He said the same thing too. It's because it's Christmas." And she's like,
yeah,
"Dumbass." Yep.
yeah.
He said the same thing. He's like, "Why? Why am I not delivering shirts Monday?" He's like, "But I'll be here Tuesday."
That's good. Well, I just tried to go live on Instagram and it like did double us, and I'm not sure why. So I
Weird. So I tried to go live, but I had to set it. I had to do something in the creator side of it to make it work for through StreamYard.
yeah,
So we have yet to stream a live through StreamYard into Instagram, but I think it will work. We
yeah,
we set up and did a live out of the studio last week, and StreamYard was working. That was the first time I'd actually pushed it ever through our side.
yeah. Well, I saw your live on Instagram, so I saw you do
Oh,
the test one.
oh, quite cool.
Yeah, you did a test one, and then I was like, oh, hey, that's on StreamYard now. So it says I'm live on my Instagram.
Yeah, and then I want to be able to push it to Rumble also.
Yeah. Well, you can do that through StreamYard.
I have to set it. I have to put a link in or something. It doesn't have just an auto button. I don't think it was really when StreamYard set up their programming. I don't think it was a thing back then,
Yeah.
and they just haven't refreshed or updated it.
Yeah, I think Jack adds his Rumble to our stream when we do the first Tuesday of the month, and that is something he does manually. I don't do that for him.
Got it.
So Instagram's the same way. What you need to do is set up the live, and then it's like you go live, and then I had to hit live on Instagram too, and then it gave us two competing, which people probably heard over that. It was probably echoey. And I just closed the window. So if closing the window stopped that, then we're not on Instagram. But if closing the window didn't, then we're fine. So
Right on. Cool.
I guess I'll find out later.
Cool.
This week is full of surprises.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that video I sent you about Dyson's farm?
Yeah. What I started watching it and I ended up having something else go on. What did you want me to pull out of that?
Well, it was interesting. Somebody sent it to me just as an example of sort of the industrial complex working in more regenerative practices. And of course, they put that out like 5 days ago. It's a tour of a really large farm of theirs in England. And what they're doing, they have a combination of like wildflowery areas that isn't cultivated, and then they are cultivating more in a conventional way, but they say it's without pesticides. Growing crops, using some of those crops to put through a digester that makes methane gas that heats a greenhouse that grows strawberries. So
Nice.
they're trying to set it up in a cyclical way at industrial scale. And of course, all the critiques are like, well, that's greenwashing because they're monocropping still. And I'm like, well, it's better than what we're doing here with glyphosate and all that stuff.
For
So
sure. And I mean, any step in the right direction is a positive step. And I mean, that's cool. I've said that for, I don't know, the last year with that biodigester. Put a deck over it and then put your row house over it and heat that off the biodigester. And then the heat that it contains will help to digest all of that waste during the winter as well. I mean, it's all a bonus if you can put it in motion.
yeah, and it was interesting because they're composting to generate the methane, and then they're using the compost as the fertilizer, the waste product from that on their crops, which are then, so that's a cycle. It's interesting. I mean, I would love to know more about it just because there aren't a lot of examples of large scale regenerative farms. And
I think I think it costs more, right? You get to that area where when you have to go to a wholesale um, business type of plan, and we have to push all that out, then you have to build it at the lowest possible price, and then you also have to still hold a profit, and you have to have a lot more human beings there, which is payroll. Whereas on the small scale agriculture, it's kind of within the community, right? We're not mailing out our goods. We are selling them direct to consumer. And typically that consumer seeks us out. And then how do we upsell them with other items? But when you take it to the bigger scale, like the best thing we did 10 years ago probably was turn off our dealer plan. And by turning off our dealer plan, we don't have that margin anymore. We deal everything direct to consumer, build a relationship with that consumer. And at the same time, we stop doing any paid advertising because the consumer will go out and prophesize and do most of our social media marketing for us. Whereas we could definitely scale. That's my bottleneck, is this town here, but I don't want to leave the town. I could move into an area where human beings are much more available, labor's there. But then we have the opposite. We have all this product we now have to try to sell. And I kind of like it how it is right now.
Yeah. Well, and that ends up at the scale that you're at, right? Unless you find like your biggest limiting factor are people.
Yes. Yes. And I would rather start a second thing, maybe parallel or completely in an opposite direction, and just have multiple streams come through and just kind of keep what we're doing. If anything, we're kind of downscaling and dealing with a more custom basis order, which the truth of it is a higher end consumer.
Yeah, and that's all good stuff.
It is. Yeah.
I said on my podcast Monday that I was a little jealous of you, and not jealous, but envious that you get to concentrate all of your like focus on one business at SOE. And then I was like, except for that, actually he has a second business that's SOE Media, because I think you put a lot of energy into content creation as well. So it's almost like you're running two things. And one of the changes I'm making in 24 as part of my word of the year is to hone down in on the things that are serving the community well and serving me best, and do more of that and drop some of the things I've been doing that's not. So
Sure. And you have a huge footprint in your area, right? So really you should hire a person or two to do media and become a media company, and then take people who are doing everybody can film, right? I can walk. I hand over so much footage that never makes it into a video. It just doesn't. And I'll even build a storyline and I'll talk to the camera. Okay, this is how I see this happening. ABC. I'm going to show you there's 2 drone videos with this. And we have so much footage going out that you'll see footage go up right now that was 6 months behind. And then you'll see footage that was last week. So when you have bodies, then you could take homesteaders, for instance, that are doing the video. They can mail you a hard drive every 30 days, and you just have your people cut up shorts. You do one piece of real content and then give them 5 shorts, let them handle loading their shorts, or you could even time them and go, hey, we will do this. This is what the cost is to get this started. And then we'll do a deal where we will get you affiliate codes, and then you retain whatever that percentage cut is. It's something, and you'll have people like, well, I can do this on my own. Well, then we probably weren't ever having this conversation if you could do it on your own. I mean, we've told people for 5 years, scream from the rooftops how to do it. Some people just don't want to do it. And people don't realize that when you look at enormous channels like Off the Ranch and Donut Operator and Brandon Herrera and all those guys, that's what that is. Like, they can cut all their own videos, but you get to a point where you're doing business meetings with all of these companies and the revenue is on a higher scale now. You don't cut video. You don't do any of that. You get to a point where there's 3 camera guys in front of you that are filming all that stuff. And it's just kind of a vlog, or you can, do stuff like Wrangler Star does and do product reviews. But I mean, they don't realize it is a much larger game plan as you see those videos that look very organic.
Yeah. And that's something I realized this year, because I met with your media guys and I've learned so much from them. But they're like, you just, this is my favorite word, you just need to do this. And I'm like,
well,
that's 10 hours.
when we just do this, we just stop doing other things. We have to weigh that, right? We do a lot of things. And then when we really think about them, you're like, this doesn't make money. And I don't like doing this. It's the typical homestead thing. People go get pigs or whatever, or goats. And you're like, I hate goats. Why do I have goats? It's like we would get a lot of frustration out of doing belt rebuilds. And I never thought about it. I was sitting right here, and Evan's like, "Why don't you just stop doing them? You don't make any money." It's the number one complaint that people have. The people who are, "Oh my God, I'm about to deploy. I have to have this belt back." That customer is always the belt. He's like, "Why don't you just stop? You charge $10 for it. Like, you lose money doing it." And it did. It freed up several hours out of several people's day.
Yeah, and then that's amazing because you can then orient that towards the things that bring in the profit that you like doing. And that's the beauty when somebody asks you a question like that, and you're like, "Man, why didn't I think of that like 5 years ago?"
Evans hit me with like a dozen of those. I'm like, it never entered my head. I just, you need somebody. I'll be looking for something for, I'll make like several attempts looking on the shelf or the rack or whatever, looking around for this. I'm like, Amanda, come over. I just need another set of eyes. And she's like, it's right here.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
what
it's
women are
just,
for. That's one of the
yeah,
things we do well.
yeah. I mean, Evan has done that business wise and so has Bob. Bob's like, just the other day, he's like, "Hey, you need to do this thing," and that's, you just need a different set of eyes that's removed from it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I hear people complaining about bringing consultants in when their bosses bring consultants in. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get a different set of eyes and see the thing that's obvious that they just didn't see. And a lot of time that knowledge is in your employees. If you have a big enough company, because they're there going, well, this is frustrating every single day. If we just make this one change, it would be better. That message doesn't always bubble up.
Yeah, and usually the people complaining are they're the dead wood in the forest, right? And especially after 2019, a lot of businesses are operating so lean that those dead trees have been removed. That wind blow is no longer there. Like there's not a handyman. Well, there's handyman, but there's not like a dude. There's not a, I don't even know. I know I'm just drawing a blank. There's not a guy that walks around and cleans the toilet paper and cleans the bathrooms anymore. There is somebody else has been tasked with that. Like, factories used to have dudes that would walk around and change the thread and put a needle in the sewing machines every morning. That's been long gone. It doesn't really exist anymore.
So I guess you better learn how to do that if you're going to be a sewer, guys.
Well, I mean, who doesn't know how to do it if you've been a sewer? It's like having a car. You put gas in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was learning to sew, the most frustrating thing and the thing that would make me just like, oh, I gotta do the bobbin was like spinning the bobbins, like putting the thread on the bobbins. It took me months to get good at that. And now it's like, eh. I mean, I'm on a consumer grade machine, so I've never
So
used a commercial machine.
and vice versa. I've never used a home machine, but all of our machines, while you're sewing, they wind a bobbin. And then
That's great.
I also have a little platform. It's a little motor and everything, and it winds bobbins. But when every place you buy thread, at least commercially, you can buy disposable bobbins. They come on plastic or they come on cardboard. We've never used them. I've never had them in my shop or factory at all. Um, but all of our, and I tell people all the time, I'll hear a machine just tearing it up, and I look over and she's winding a bobbin, and I go, that does that while you sew that. If you just start the winding, you change your bobbin, put your dead bobbin over there, and it'll wind it up.
Ah, well, that's really darn cool. Now I need a commercial sewing machine.
You should have a
I
commercial
probably
sewing
should.
machine, really.
Yeah.
Um, I've been really paying attention to commercial treadle sewing machines. Like, we have a bunch of Singers. Amanda's got a very nice one we got
Yeah.
recently. But they make big ones. Singer, every company has them. They've got big ones for like tacking boot soles and all kinds of stuff. And I think I'm going to add one of those soon. I really want something that's just non-electric. I just bought I'm super excited about it. I just bought a cream separator. It's from
Oh,
early
sweet.
early 1900, and it was made by Montgomery Ward. And it's this huge cast iron. It's 5 feet tall. It's got these two platforms, and it's a hand crank. And I don't even have anything that produces milk. But when I saw it, I'm like, well, we bought it. Really searched butter churns, and when you look at old butter churns, they're like $300. Some of them are even more. So we bought one, and I'd never paid attention to them, and now it's like the blue car thing. As soon as you get a blue car, they're everywhere. So I now own like 15 butter churns, and we keep making video content. I'm like, okay, here's another butter churn. we're well on the way to the butter churn museum, and we can just stop doing all this SOE nonsense. We'll just have a butter churn. Everything will be butter. And people are like, yeah, I can't wait to buy freeze dried butter and butter pops and butter sickles, and just a joke.
Yeah. Well, so the most frustrating thing about my milk subscription is that they are so busy that they stop providing heavy cream, which means
Yep.
I have to do the task of separating my own cream, which is just tragic, right? But I don't want to. I try to stay away from commercial milk as much as possible. I like cream in my coffee, and I've been looking at cream sets, just electric separators for a while. But yeah, they won't do it. And I was like, man, we should just get like everybody who has milk subscription in my area. We just need to go in on one and do it. I'd of course like the electric one for the ease of use, but I think it's really cool to have that non-electric stuff as well.
We have all the electric stuff, and then we have more non-electric. Like, we're going to eventually set up another building which is mostly just a non-electric, or geared towards using without electricity should we need to.
That would be really fun to do demos at too. Like this is
I
how it works without it.
Yeah, I think so too, and it'll be great for building content. For Amanda's really interested in that and all the apothecary stuff, and I mean, every day she's infusing something or building tinctures, and I'll complain about something. She's like, "Come here, let me rub this on you," and she's like, "Does it hurt?" I go, "I guess it's working because I haven't thought anything about it, and now that you mention it, it does not hurt." So there's really is something to that.
Yeah, there is. I made a goldenrod tincture this year,
Hmm.
and I made enough goldenrod tincture to last about 4,000 years because
Good.
I just did it in a mason jar, right? Which is a lot.
Hmm.
And except for it's not going to last 4,000 years because Tactical injured his back. And I was like, well, just try these drops and see if they work. And he's like, that's scary how well it worked because now I might go injure an existing injury because I don't feel my back pain anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And then I had back issues from how I was roasting coffee this month, and I was like, "Oh, it does work. I really like it." So it's kind of fun going down that herbalism route. In fact, we're going to be doing herbalism and some natural remedy focus at Self Reliance Festival in March. That's something different for that one. And you go down it kind of skeptical because we've been all trained to think that Western
Yep.
medicine's the way, and then you're like, man, that works so great. Yeah, Amanda says goldenrod is good. We should get her in on this. Goldenrod is so good for many things. It is really cool. And I talked to an herbalist who said she doesn't use goldenrod because it's a plant that's going extinct, or it's rare. And I'm
Mm.
thinking, like, at my house,
Yeah.
goldenrod just like pops up everywhere. It's a weed here, and so why not use it?
Yeah, we have, and I think that's a lot of it too, right? We always talk about what if, and the the easiest one is what if the power goes out, right? What if we can no longer get this thing, the fodder trees? How do we feed our animals when we can't get pelletized feed if that ever happens? Well, when we started, we just got the Picture It app and started walking around, and Amanda's like, "What's this? What's this?" I'm like, "Man, I mow that stuff down all the time." So we just didn't mow for 6 months, and we had, like, when we went to Dawn's um apothecary lecture she gave, it was an hour, and then we did a walk around the property and stuff. We had all that stuff. Like 90% of what we want is here already growing on the property, and I'm spraying it with Roundup in the gravel, or I'm chopping it down with a mower, and it's all over the place. Like, we use everything that's on the property. There was only like 2 or 3 plants that we didn't use for anything.
Yeah, it's kind of fun how that works. It's when you get into that, suddenly your landscaping starts looking different because you realize that, oh, that's one I can use for this or that. It took me years to get echinacea to take hold here, but now that it's here, I don't think it'll ever go away.
And if we want, and which we need pollinators, right? If we want the pollinators, we really have to stop cutting that stuff down. That's what's going to bring them in. And we, a couple of years ago, I noticed we had no honeybees at all. We had carpenter bees, which were pollinating, and we had some flies that were pollinating like mint and stuff. So we went to Lowe's, and they had all these flowers, and we're walking out there. I go, "There's no honeybees out here at all." And we bought a bunch of plants and brought them in, and they didn't really attract honeybees. The bees in your area are going to come to those plants. And we planted like bottle brush and marigolds and, some flowers, but it didn't add any pollinators. Nothing more came in.
Yeah, Amanda says every time we go somewhere, I look around and think, look at all that medicine.
She does. She says it all the time. All the time.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I wish more people would be open-minded about that, just because if you can take care of a problem with a smaller intervention, I think it's better for you long term. My grandparents both lived into their 90s. They grew their food, they canned their food, they tried not to take medication of any kind, down to bearing arthritic pain rather than take the pain medication, under the idea that your body lasts longer if you don't expose it to the poison. Worked for them. Don't know if that was why, but they were both, like, my grandma was 96, my grandpa was 92.
Well, look at your modern medicine, and we treat this ailment or this pain or whatever, and it causes liver failure or kidney failure. I mean, when they have to give you a list of 100 things that it might make happen to you, to include may kill you, like maybe that should be a clue. Like, what were we doing just 50, 60 years ago? In the 50s is really when that all got co-opted, right? I think it was by Vanderbilt's, which really was Rockefeller, oil money. And they realized all those medications were being made from petroleum. And that's when they, and like Spirko says, if I've got a stop sign through my spleen, I definitely want a doctor. But listening just to knowing Dr. Barry and him being our doctor for 14 years, like a real doctor, was our family doctor for 14 years, and how much of the ailments and things go away just through change of diet. I think it actually is insidious. I think that doctors have been programmed to sell medications, right? That's what doctors have become. But at the same time, they or the powers that be or the bigger companies have told you, hey, you need to mow this down and you need to spray this. I mean, what if you have some wild thing growing out there and you can take it and muddle it up and infuse it into an oil or let it steep into a tincture for a few weeks, take it, and it literally solves your problem out of something that is a weed. And at the same time, they're not selling you a prescription that is, $200, $300, $400, $500, depending on where the patent sits, and then selling you 2 more drugs to keep the first one from killing you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I do know, if you observe where the bees go, if you look at it, they do like the goldenrod, they like bee balm. It's
Yep.
in the name. They like the mint, they like the dead nettle, and they like elderberry flowers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Yep.
you hear that tree that's buzzing, you look at that tree. They love privet. People destroy privet, which it will take over everything, but the bees love it, and that's some of the early food they get here
Yep.
before other things are running. They get it from the privet.
And you said elderberry, right? Every time somebody has a cold, your healthy friend will be like, elderberry syrup, elderberry syrup. It tastes good. Like, you won't mind drinking it. Why would you not try that? It
Yeah.
literally tastes like Christmas.
Yeah, it is. It's delicious. And it's funny because they tried to say it would make things work during the Kufus, that taking the elderberry syrup would cause the cytonic storm. I don't know if you saw that. That was like a big thing, and then that turned out not to be true.
Well, they said that about a few other things too that actually worked, and they said they didn't, and even made them illegal and ruined people's careers over recommending them. So I think at this point, people who are not our friends or even catch one of these lives randomly, I think that most of the people, I think people are just know. They saw it and they watched people suffer, and we all know somebody that, man, we go to these antique stores all the time, and there's one we frequent, and there's a lady in there, and there's a man that works with her, and they were very much against the thing. And she told us this weekend, we saw her, and we said, hey, where's, what's his name? I know his name, I'm just not mentioning it. And she said, he went all this time without this, and he was going to a big Tennessee ball game, and he took this thing, and he had a heart issue now, and he's had 2 or 3 other things pop up, and it's just ruined him.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
and after all this time, like, knowing that was the thing. So, man, and even like, I don't know, man. We know what's up. I think a lot of people know what's
Yeah.
up, and people are waking up to it. We don't need to tell them. They know, and they will find somebody that will help educate them on them at this point.
I had a friend from the gym whose husband got the first one, heart attack, and they told him to wait 6 weeks before he got the second one so he could recover, and he did.
Crazy.
And I'm
Look at
thinking, like, what?
Yeah, if you know any commercial airline pilots, have a conversation with them. You have these airlines that are taking off with, I think there's 2 or 3 pilots on board, and they're landing with 1 less. Like they have mid-air heart attacks. You've got all kinds of crazy shit going on, and it's happening with all kinds of stuff like that.
Crazy, crazy. Okay, so it's the Christmas season. How have your sales been?
We're good. We're
Yeah.
good. It's down a little from the last years for sure, but we're solid.
We're about the same as last year.
That's awesome.
So that was something, like my whole year is higher than last year, but I noticed that this it sort of was a real slow start and then it all hit last week at once. And now, now it's too close. But it's been an interesting year. That tells me something a little bit about how people are feeling, I think.
Yeah.
Little bit of a simpler year for many people. But I dug into my Night Before Christmas poetry. I do this series where it's different versions of the Night Before Christmas, like the redneck version and the Australian version. And I thought I had 5 of them, and I found many more. I was like,
That's
oh,
cool.
I guess I've really been collecting this. So starting tonight at 6, we'll have the intellectual Night Before Christmas. And we'll go a different version every night at 6 up till Christmas, just on the audio podcast. But it's a
Awesome.
it's a tradition. I loved when I was a kid, like, the magic of Christmas was, like, the book with the poem that we'd read, and, you'd wake up the next morning and there'd be presents under the tree, and that was super exciting, and I think because of that, like, fondness in my childhood, I just really like that poem now, so
That's cool. Yeah, we used to watch it when we were young. You'd have, like The Grinch Before Christmas would come on, and Charlie Brown Christmas would be on, and then Night Before Christmas, and the whole Scrooge thing, that was always one of them. And then every few years you'd have Hollywood remake a big version of it. I can't even imagine what it would be now, but how crazy it would be now. But I think with not watching television, you don't all gather around in the same room for that anymore. I think some of that is gone for sure.
that's actually something that we have started doing here is in the evening after dinner, we will watch like a half hour, 45-minute show of some kind at this time of year because it's dark. And I realized that when you and I were younger, we came up in the time where a weekend activity was to go to Blockbuster,
Yeah,
rent a movie, and stay in and watch the movie, and I'm like, I think it, like, accesses those things to watch a show because it's actually kind of nice at this time of year to have that moment of brain turn off before bed, basically.
yeah, amusement, which in the rawest form means no thought.
I know I'm
Um,
supposed to just work harder, but that's not what's happening right now.
we used to we had a Blockbuster in town in Tierra Santa, and we would go and rent. And I guess they did have DVDs when we were renting those still. We'd rent 3, 4, 5 movies, and then Amanda and I and the kids would be out in the garage, and Amanda and I would be working, and usually an employee during the day or two would be in the garage working, and we would just so we watched. I don't know that we watched them. We played all of the movies as they came out, and Blockbuster was a big thing. We were there once, twice a day, a lot of times, and it happened to be in the same plaza where there was a Starbucks. So that was racking up that $1,200 a month coffee bill at the same time. We would just do it out of habit. And we sometimes we're like, "Do you want coffee? No. Do you want coffee? No." But we'd still be there getting coffee somehow.
Somehow. I did that today. I have reached my caffeine limit for the day, and I realized it when I was sitting down for this live stream, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be hyper on this one today." Um, when I'm roasting, I just brainlessly every time I go in the house, I'm like, "Oh, it's time for another coffee. Oh, it's time
Hmm.
for another coffee." So yeah, but got the orders out before this call, which is great.
You will know that you have achieved your over limit of coffee when you start seeing in black and white.
Yeah, that
You
hasn't
can.
happened to me, but I've had, like, heart flutters from it, which is not great.
We were doing gear for a movie. We had like a week to get the rest of the stuff all done, and we stopped at Starbucks the night before. I was going to work all through. We were up to like 2 days until we had to ship all this stuff. And I said, I want 10 shots of espresso and 2 pumps of vanilla syrup. And she's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah. So we did that, and I worked all through the night, and I was kind of tired the next morning. So the next morning we went to Starbucks again and got the same thing, and I got about a quarter way through that, and just something was wrong. I couldn't sleep, but I couldn't function. Just laid down. I was seeing in black and white, and finally laid there for a few hours. I ended up going to sleep, woke up, and I was fine. But I mean, I've had that happen twice in my life, just like that. So I assume it's the over caffeination.
Well, it's funny because Mona says here, "Coffee roulette, will it make me hyper or sleepy?" And that is a thing for me
Mhm.
too. Like, I can have coffee and go to bed, or I
I
can have
used to.
coffee and be up all night, and it's completely related, I think, to how much cortisol is in my system. When I'm already, like, super stressed, if you add coffee to that, it's the up all night outcome, and if I'm like, "It's all cool, I'm gonna eat a nice dinner, have a cup of coffee, and go to bed relaxed," it triggers me differently, so
Yeah, I used to be able to go at 9 o'clock and get some coffee and still go to sleep at 10, 11 o'clock. Now if I have coffee after and it works differently, because I can take chemicals. I can use pre-workout and stuff and still go to sleep. But it's the coffee. When I get coffee, it hits me differently than the caffeine in these other things. It used to be that every time I would pee, you would smell coffee. If I was peeing in the toilet, the whole room would smell like a coffee pot brewing. But I don't drink. I'll have one, maybe 2 cups of coffee a day now.
yeah, I cut down to 2 because I had a heart incident in the pool last month. I actually still need to find a cardiologist to just check that out, but, I cut it down to 2 until about the last week where I've stopped being careful, and I need to be careful again just because I don't wanna repeat that incident, so
So I never used to drink water. I would only drink. I would get to the shop in the morning, make a pot of coffee, pour it in a big cup with ice, and drink that. And then me drinking was always drinking coffee. And I would become short of breath sometimes, never under a cardio load, but at rest, I would just kind of be short of breath. But I could get on the treadmill, stair stepper, I could mountain bike, no problem. It was only at rest. And I ended up talking to a couple of buddies of mine, Dr. Norman, who's a doctor. And he said, he's like, tell me what you eat. And we went through everything, and he's like, you're loaded with caffeine. Like, you need to come off of caffeine. Um, no green tea, no coffee, nothing. And I went 6 months and took no liquids on board, no stimulants, nothing other than water. And that completely solved it. It never, and I did take Excedrin, which had a little caffeine in it, because he's like, this is going to be miserable for a week or two. You're really going to have, headaches, bad headaches from it. And just push through it. And I've done that. There's been a few times since then where I've just gone water for 6 weeks, but the coffee at night, man, I will literally look at the clock at 1, 2 in the morning. I'm like, I had coffee.
yep, I know the feeling. I don't get headaches when I go off coffee anymore, but I think it's because I drink less coffee now than I used to. But I used to when I would get the stomach flu, that would be also the time I would go off coffee because you're not
Yeah.
gonna. And then I'd be like, "Okay, well, I haven't had coffee for 2 days, so I'll go a few weeks and just sort of reset my system," because the headache was all concentrated during all of the misery anyway. So,
Hmm.
I thought about giving coffee once. No, I didn't. I mean, every
Yep.
so often it's good to reset, I think, on all those things we use in different ways.
Yep. I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken.
There is that. Okay, so Christmas is coming, and what do you guys do at Christmas? Are you gonna cook a special meal, or is it just sort of like every other day of the week?
It'll just be Amanda and I, and really, we probably won't do anything. We'll probably be up late the night before. We'll probably sleep in half the day, get up, take care of animals, we'll be like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, everything's closed. So we really won't do anything Christmas Day. And the next day, I think we'll have the shop open. I think we're running. So no big deal.
So it's just an extra weekend day where you get to sleep in.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get a ton of stuff done here, which we do every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's not, it's Christmas Day is Monday though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do something, Saturday or Sunday. We'll go do something. We don't ever know what. I'll know 5 minutes before.
That makes sense. It's more fun that way.
Yep.
So what's the latest on the homestead? What's it called? Ooh, Homestead Apprentice. Yeah, the word apprentice escaped me for a second.
Resumes and videos are coming in. We're continue to put content up. Good response to it. People seem interested in it. We keep just adding into it. The truth is, it's pretty cool as it is, and we just keep adding to it and refining it. And you know how it is when we do one of these events or something. We don't ever we'll be super worried about it, and it'll always come off better than we could have hoped for. And the next time, it's just even that much better and refined and honed.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. You worry going in, and then it all comes together. It's kind of like weddings are that way. People are all stressed about the flowers being the right color, but at the end of the day, usually the wedding is fine, even if Uncle Jack got sick. I mean, got too drunk and did something funny. You just remember that as a part of your wedding. So,
yeah, and the way I see it, typically, the people worried about it the most are not even a party of the wedding.
Also
it's
true.
Usually,
yeah,
the more money, the more, which you married the wrong bitch. Like if that's if that's the case, like, do you really want to go through something tough with that person?
Yeah, I feel like eloping is a really good option in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't involve. I don't go to weddings, so
yeah,
I don't get invited to a lot.
I think one person got married this year whose wedding I would go to if I could, but I don't like to go to them much either. Not that I don't like to wish people well, but yeah. Radio Made Easy says wedding cost is inversely correlated with the length of the marriage.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Don't invite me to your wedding. I'm not coming. If you're important enough that I'm going to be at your wedding, we'll have your wedding here.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to do it to ensure that you show up.
Yep. I've been to a few.
Are you going to go to any events in the next year? Are you going to go to any Bears stuff or?
Yeah, I'm supposed to go to the Ruckus.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Anywhere else, or is that it?
We probably will. I don't even know. I don't have a calendar, which might come as a surprise to you.
I'm shocked.
I have, nothing planned out. Like if you want to do something with John, hey, will you do this? Yes, it sounds like I'll do that. Okay, remind me, and you need to remind me a week ahead of time, and then that day, and then usually a few minutes ahead of time. Like the only thing I really show up for is this.
Mm-hmm. Which you do every week pretty solidly. So you're not going to know what to do with yourself next Tuesday when we're not here.
Yeah, I won't know it's Tuesday.
Uh-huh. Well, tell me about that shirt. So
this shirt says "Stop Believing in Government," and on the back it has the snake cut up in pieces, and on the back it says Santa Claus, leprechauns, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny have all done more for you than your government.
Great. Was that this week's shirt?
That's this week's shirt. Yeah, they just came in here yesterday. We just started shipping them this morning.
OriginalSOEgear.com, guys. Get them before they sell out, because that one's definitely going to sell out quickly. That's a great.
It's pretty good one.
Yeah. I always like your shirts, but today I have Become Ungovernable. I've been wearing this one a lot.
I like that shirt. It's got the subdued black flag, which is no surrender, no quarter. And if you just look up black flag, you will get the history on it, and you'll see a lot of infighting over it. They say that it is a white supremacist flag, and it comes from the Confederacy. And then you have other people that say it was never flown and it did not exist. But it is no surrender, no quarter. We will not house your people. We will not surrender.
Yep. It's also a really good one to wear through the TSA.
Yeah, I mean most of the, like we all have the the grief with the TSA. But there's a lot of TSA guys that are, they're like us. They believe the same things. They're there as a job, a lot of them. I mean, you do have crazy people in every agency, but I mean, I really think it's the smaller portion of it.
So you sent me a recording like a week and a half ago. Have you played that one publicly or no? That
What do
phone
we?
recording, the phone message?
I have not played it. I have not played it
Okay.
publicly.
You
I
Are we not talking
so
about that?
yeah, sure we can. And I always have the intention. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna make some content. I'm gonna blast this guy,
Yeah.
and then it'll be lunchtime, and I'll have eaten. I'm like, "Ah, I have other things to do. We used to make a lot of money, like, and I mean, when I say a lot of money, we made millions of dollars into the bank account off of blasting guys like that. So, guy orders a set of belt keepers. That's a $20 item. He spent $20, and our automated email generates back to him and says, "Hey, thanks for your order. Um, this could take up to 12 weeks to ship," and shows him what he ordered. Well, he doesn't reply to that email or anything. He finds a phone number linked off of one of the payment links and calls Amanda's cell phone and leaves a message, literally cussing her out. And I expect a phone call immediately. This is complete bullshit. I'm with the DOD. You don't want to fuck with me. If you've scammed me, I'm the wrong person to scam. And when somebody says DOD, that's like saying I work in law enforcement. There's not a cop out there that says I work in law enforcement. I work in law enforcement is code for I'm not a police officer. That means you are a jail guard or dispatch or security, and we definitely need those guys. But what it really screams is I'm not a cop. And I'm with DOD. Yeah, so is the security guard at the bowling alley on base. That's typically what that is. So I she comes and she's like, "Hey, listen to this." And I find his order and I send him an email and I'm like, "Hey, dumbass, we have this. It was shipped today. You basically, I don't even remember what I told him, but something to the effect of the person you're talking to on the other end of the phone can usually give you what you want or keep you from getting what you want. Um, Go ahead and, look in the mirror. You're involved in every problem you have. And I hope your day gets better." I don't know what I said. I'm sure it was a little more harsh than that. And he called her back immediately and after I emailed him, and he escalated, went above there. "You better be looking over your back. I'm not the guy you want to fuck with." Just like insane. And I immediately think like this guy probably carries a gun for a living. Like
Yep.
this is the typical crazy person in the agency. And that was kind of the end of it. The next morning I actually had 3 emails from him, and the order had already shipped. Like the order went through the process and had made it out the door before this guy stopped even. So he had tracking when he had sent those next 3 emails, he'd already had tracking. Like his order was out of the building that day. It's just crazy. And and one of his emails said, and I said, "Hey, you said belt attachments. These are belt keepers. Like you're fucked up 12 ways from Sunday. You don't even know what you ordered." And one of his emails said, "Well, I was going to place a $500 order, but I wanted to place this small order and test your company." And when I sent that to Evan, Evan goes, "It's crazy that they don't realize that they're all reading from the same imaginary script. It's never a guy with $100 or $200 order that does this. It's always a set of belt keepers. It's usually a shotgun card, which used to be $15, and it's always a low dollar amount that is the most insane and the most problematic, always. And when you say something, the answer is always, "Well, I was just gonna test this out. I'm gonna show it to my team or my SWAT team." We had a dude do this years ago, and I published all his stuff. I put his name and his phone number and everything up there. And within about 30 minutes, a guy hit me up and he's like, "Hey, I'm head of security over here at this college. That guy works for us, and he got in trouble for engaging some female students. So we don't actually let him patrol campus. He only is in dispatch. He's not allowed to leave the offices in the capacity that he's in. And he's not on SWAT, and he's not even a police officer." And we've had dozens of them over the years that will weave this story as though they're going to get a different kind of customer service, but always assholes. The customer that's like, hey, I saw this 8 to 12. Is there any way you can, ship this out faster or whatever? The guy with the massive emergency, it's almost always horseshit, because if it really was a massive emergency, that guy would already have that product. Like, he would have been issued that, or he would have multiple sets of that typically. But you have to think, this is an engagement blindly through email. Imagine how the rest of these people's lives are. And if you really want to see it in real life, when you walk into a Walmart, or Best Buy typically tends to have it too. Amanda's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to the customer service department. I go, I just want to listen. You just stand there and listen. If there is somebody, if you hear a heated conversation, just listen to a few minutes of it, because it's always the same people, man. They are there berating the little girl that works at customer service as though she can do anything about it. She didn't make you buy the piece of shit that came from China at Walmart, but it's the same guy. He's always, you can see them at like Applebee's and any of those chain restaurants. It's the guy who orders the steak and eats half of his steak, if not more of it, calls the waitress over, makes a big scene about it, demands to see the waiter, the manager, and then the manager comes over, and he doesn't support the staff because human resources, the whole deal is to diffuse the situation, pay for his meal, give him dessert, and then give him a voucher so he comes back. So these people have been rewarded for that behavior over and over and over and over. I like to call that guy Bob. And Bob is the same dude that's in the office at the cooler. And he's like, what are you guys doing tonight? We're not doing nothing. But all of you and your guys go over to the sports bar or whatever. And inevitably Bob shows up, and he's the one that's going to embarrass you and make the biggest deal and always going to have a problem. And that's how most engagements in his entire life are. And we just don't deal with those people any longer. Typically, the answer is canceled and refunded. We don't even communicate with them typically. We just don't have time to. We've just got better stuff going on. And I really believe, as fun as it used to be and the money we used to make, because we would promote those pushes on social media and use that guy's name as a discount code. And then those people would typically tag his account, so he would have to lock his account down. Now they have, community guidelines, and you get your page locked down for it, so we can't benefit from it. But I do believe that if you're involved in positivity, you're going to have a lot more positivity coming back. And when you get involved in negativity, it just opens up the universe, and you're going to have more negativity. So I do try to, it's almost more important to remove negativity than even adding positivity to your life. And I do think that there's something to that. So I've just kind of throttled it back.
It's funny, because when I heard that, I wondered what it's like to be that angry. Like,
that's what you said. Yeah.
Because it's like, step one, order item on the internet that actually says shipping can take up to 12 weeks on your website in big red letters, last time I saw.
And it also says literally in these words, we offer no refund. We are never fucking giving your money back. It literally says that.
Yeah. And
right
then
next to
orders it, gets a confirmation email. First interaction with the company is to accuse them of being scammers, and just like, if somebody had talked to me like that, I would have been like, people just don't talk to me like that. It's just not okay. That's the first reaction. He was in such a rage already because of what was said in the confirmation email that he couldn't behave like a human being. And then, of course, he got worse from there. And I just thought, man, that's that's got to be an awful existence every day to wake up with that much rage. And then the second thing is, if he really is at the Department of Defense, same thing. He's walking around with a gun on. Like, this is that person that eventually snaps and beats somebody to death because he thinks he's entitled to.
Like Joy, our massage therapist, was here last night, and she had said, she's like, I got a ticket. She was in the hurry to go to another thing. She got a ticket last week, and she's like, the cop was totally cool. And I said, was he a state trooper? She goes, yeah. I go, the state troopers always have a smile on their face while they're giving you a ticket. They have a really good customer relations class or something. And she goes, the last time I got a ticket from a state trooper, he literally was really mad at me because I was speeding, and I thought he was going to open my door and pull me out. And I was actually scared of him. And I said, was it like high traffic? Were you going really fast? She's like, no, I was going 10 over. It was at 10:30 at night. There was no traffic. And I go, and that guy carries a gun, man. That's the thing that you remember, is that interaction. And there are just people out there, whether they had a bad day or whatever, there's people out there that are like that, man. And he's driving a vehicle too. It doesn't, whether he carries a gun or not, he's behind a big giant chunk of metal. And you see the road rage stuff all the time. It's just wild that they are in a position of authority in some manner, and they can literally alter the course of other people's lives with their decisions.
Yes. And many of them have gone into that field because they wanted to fuck people up. Like, that was I get to fight
Yeah,
people. That's why I'm
yeah.
going into this. And that's where a filter for that would be nice.
Well, I mean, we used to have guys, you had a gray area, right? Everything wasn't black or white. And then with the badge cams, things have changed. Now they protect people. I mean, I would want a conversation, but I mean, when you FOIA request those badge cameras, there's a lot of stuff redacted. I really think that it's unfortunately to the point now. I've even my kids, if you have contact with law enforcement, you should record it. Whether they know it or not, and you should secondary have a recording they don't know, because there's a ton of stuff out there. When you record it, it escalates way beyond where it would have. But you need to have, like, there's plenty of videos out there where they've taken the phone and deleted the footage or deleted it out of the cloud. Like, it's unfortunately to that point. And especially like in the last 3 or 4 years, Chicago is a good example with Lightfoot. When all those people who had been on the force for any length of time, typically the people who are going to uphold the Constitution or be, the oath keepers, those are the people who also wouldn't take the thing, right? So they pushed all those people off the force. And then you have new bodies coming in to hire. Who are they hiring? They're hiring yes men. They're typically hiring a lower IQ. They've even said that if you're at a certain IQ level, we automatically disqualify you from law enforcement. And now it's in such a shambles. I saw Los Angeles, Nashville, and there was somewhere in New York that was starting police officers at $120,000 a year with a 5-year signing bonus. It used to be like in Los Angeles, if you had Spanish as a second language, they were giving you a $20,000 signing bonus. And that was, well, I haven't been in California for over 20 years, but like, they're desperate now. I mean, they're really looking for people.
I can see why. Although in my county, people want to get that job. That's one of the desired jobs here because,
well, I think it's
benefits and yeah.
And I'm not saying don't do it. I think it's a great job for the right people. But as you see with all these videos, there's a ton of dudes in there that are not the right people.
So my client base is different than yours. I shipped coffee out this week minus 3 pounds in the order on accident. Totally my fault.
Okay.
Like, they had 2 things on their order, 4 of one and 1 of another. And I put 1 and 1. And I got an email. Hey, I was just wondering, because my order came, was that intentional and there's a second box, or have you made a mistake? And I was like, yep, I made a mistake and it went out today. Not mad, just wondering why my coffee isn't here. That's usually the interaction when we make a mistake.
And that's the majority of our interactions, right? Every business has crazy stuff. We just spotlight it, right? We do too. We mess up. It's Amanda and myself, and a few other people here that are dealing with your orders, and human beings. And typically, we're in here. I start pulling orders at like 5:30 in the morning, and we try to get as much out as possible. I mean, we're shipping between 200, sometimes upwards of 400 orders, and there's only 2 of us touching those orders. Something will get messed up, and typically it's, hey, I miss, like, there's no hatefulness or anything to it.
Yeah.
That's actually very rare. You'll see people talking about, man, I wouldn't order from SOE. He always blasts his customers, and we used to. But even when you did the math on that, it's less than 1%. It's way less than 1%.
Well, hopefully it's less than 1% of people who are as angry as that dude, because that was he is just waiting to explode. That's just
imagine how his interactions in person were that day.
Yeah, that could be interesting. He probably told everybody the story multiple times.
Well, he did. He said, I mean, on his last thing, he's like, I'm going to make posts all over social media and I'm going to tell everybody what you did to me and I'm going to show them the emails. And I generally reply back. I'm like, I would recommend these links right here. This is my Facebook. This is my Instagram. This is my YouTube. And if you tag me in them, I'll even reshare your post. I will post your post where we've got almost 2 million combined across social media. I will expose your post to 2 million people who see my business stuff.
And he didn't tag you, did he?
No, they never do. They never do.
Yeah.
They'll show up anonymously saying something completely different.
I had somebody reach out to me on a community group I manage asking if I would post something for them anonymously because they couldn't post anonymously on the group. And I was like, well, probably not, but what is it? And they said it was a public health issue. And I'm like, if it's really a public health issue, why can't you post it with your name? But
Yeah.
and then they didn't answer, so I don't know. I mean, it's somebody who I've interacted with before who I don't know what that was about, but I'm like, if it's blasting somebody without proof, we're probably not going to post it on the page until I can verify it.
Maybe they're trying to warn people, but they're in a position where it would be
They can't.
known that it came from them, a public health thing if they work with who knows what it is.
Yeah, well, and then in which case, tell me.
Human resources is really everything's kid gloves now, right? My human resources is step in my office, you're fired. Hey, come here a second. Oh, you're fired again. That's my human resources.
Mhm.
But typically when somebody comes in with a human resources problem, Karen's mad at Bob or whatever. Okay, hey, let me call them in. Oh, no, don't call them in here. Well, you have this problem with it. Let's work this out. And usually the problem goes away. Usually most problems are that it's not a problem. Like I know that I often talk about our local Facebook group, and that's the thing right now.
It had a good week this week, I noticed.
We did. I'm actually enjoying this. But it's insane. Every post right now, every day there's a dozen posts. Who's helping and assisting with Christmas and who's got free food and I can't pay my water bill. But the same people making those posts, and I said in there, I go, you guys, maybe you don't realize this, but I can click on your name and see every post you've made on this page. And I see that just last week, you're asking who's selling a Cane Corso, right? A dog that gets 150 pounds that's going to cost $100 a week to feed. And then I saw that you just got all these new tattoos, but you can't pay your water bill. Like it's wild. And then we don't need more vape shops. We need daycare. And I said, that's absolutely all you good idea fairies. Like you're saying that the city should close down these people's businesses, but they spent their money to buy the property, build the building, and put the products in there. If people didn't frequent the businesses, the business would fail, right? Spend your money wherever you want. And all you guys that want daycare, that's awesome. There's all kinds of federal grant money. You should totally go start a daycare because you've been on here complaining the same stuff for 10 years. Surely in 10 years, you could have saved the money to start this and make it a going concern. I go, you don't get to vote with other people's money. It's just not how this works. And that's just how, and I mean, I'm as a business owner, I think I have a little different perspective on it, but that's how things seem to be.
Yeah, you got a liquor store apparently going in somewhere because people are all mad about that and want an ice skating rink for the kids.
It's been here for 6 months. It
Okay.
sells liquor and vape.
Okay.
It's a and they're Indian, right? So a lot of people don't like them because they are Indian. They also own 2 gas stations and a hotel and all that. It's the Patels.
Mhm.
That's the name they take when they migrate over, a lot of them. But they've been here. I've been here 20 years. They were here 20 years before me. It's baffling to like, I don't know, man. Just they're doing business. They do good business. They pay taxes in the community. They provide employment. And somebody grumbling over like, don't go there. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't go there.
I don't go.
Start your arcade or whatever if you think.
And I say this as a person who's never been in their business. I don't use any of their businesses, but that's just how it is. If they can cause problems there, when am I going to be the target? How far down? Like once you eliminate them, what are you going to be mad about?
Yeah, rather than build something positive.
Well, that's it. They're not building anything. It's the same people asking for donations all the time, needing assistance. Camden Water, our local water company, who I don't want to pay for water and electric. My damn electricity bill went up $1,000 during COVID, and it never came down. My electricity bill to turn this property on and run it is $3,500 a month. I think that's ridiculous. Camden Water just came out and made a post yesterday. Hey, your water bills are due this week, and if you are late, there will be a $50 reconnection fee. And people lost their shit over it. It's Christmas time. How dare you? This is so hateful. They've made that post every month for the last 24 months. Like it's not something new. And all you guys complaining about how hateful it is, well then you should probably get off of Facebook and go pay their electricity bill if you have a problem with it. You go pay it.
Yep. It's not fun not to have water on Christmas, but there's a way to avoid it, and there's still time.
Man, I've come home. There are many times we went weeks without water. I understand the frustration, but none of them have lived without water or electricity. I have. I lived in a shop for 90 days on a concrete slab. When I pulled up to my first shop in Oceanside, my Blazer ran out of gas, and they put 2 tickets on the windshield that night. I got a couple Marines to help me push it around back. And I didn't leave that building for 90 days. I sat in there and just worked. There was no shower in there. There was nothing but a sink in there. I didn't have anything in there. Like, we live in a world right now where we have so much convenience and our lives are so simple that we are out on the internet grumbling about other people's problems.
That is a luxury.
It really is. It really is. These people have no calluses on their hands. There's never been any physical labor to it. And everybody wants to be involved in somebody else's shit.
Which doesn't bring you positive things either. That was my habit. I always try to help other people because I'm a helper.
Yes.
And I still help people, but I don't just get sucked into that anymore because I would spend more time helping them than building this.
Yep.
And building this helps more people than helping one person.
Just imagine if people driving past your property could see that your dogs are out in the snow. If you want to really see how crazy things are, wait till people see animals out in the winter, and it's not their animals. They will lose their minds. We have people that make posts about horses being out in the snow and cows being out in the fields in winter. Like, where do you think those deer go? Like, there's a barn there. The animals just don't go in it.
Yeah. You don't hear them saying the poor deer in the woods during that time, though.
No, you do from new people that have moved here.
Okay.
Like you'll see it. It's wild.
Yeah. We get more posts about whose dog is this getting on my property. I'm going to shoot it. So
there's a ton of that. We had one yesterday that Benton County should require all animals to be chipped.
I saw that one
too. Everybody's mad about the dogs. And the people saying the craziest shit. If this dog comes on my property again, well, you have the right. If my dogs get off of my property and end up on your property and damage your animals, you have that right. Like that is the Tennessee right. If an animal comes on your property, you can dispatch that animal. I wouldn't say shit about it. I'd just bury that thing, and that would be the end of the problem. But they don't want to solve the problem. Everybody wants to call somebody with a gun and threaten you with the response of a firearm, which is what that is when you call a police officer. They don't want to deal with the problem. They don't want to handle the problem. They want to call somebody else that will make you bend to their will. And you have moved someplace that is super rural. Like, we have back roads here that aren't maintained, but there's people complaining about a dog that has wandered around for the last 10 years. That dog makes the same course every morning. It goes to the same place.
Yep. My frustration is this. I installed a high efficiency furnace, Energy Star refrigerator, and all my lights are LED, and my bill went up. You know what I've missed about appliances that are super efficient is they also often have light up screens that stay lit up. I've never measured it, but I've always wondered if they just use more power because of that, but then it's more efficient doing the thing that it's supposed to do.
Yeah, if it has that Energy Star rating, it should not go up. It should definitely be rated down. There's a box called a kilowatt. I think they cost about $60, or they used to. You plug it in the outlet and you plug your appliance or whatever into it, and it shows you what it actually draws, and it will actually calculate that monthly bill. I think they even have a website. You can put it into a calculator, and it'll tell you what that thing should cost. That is very odd. My suspicion, landfill, would be that the cost of the electricity has gone up. And while we're mentioning appliances, you really need to know, if you're not aware, going into buying refrigerators and washers and stuff like that, especially washing machines and dryers, you're lucky if you get 24 months out of them now. You're much actually better off to find an old appliance that is still functioning. It won't look modern and pretty, but they still work. Buy a refrigerator or a freezer and set it out in the garage or someplace where there's dust, and that thing will not last. But you can go to Granny's house and pull a freezer that is literally rusted all over and looks like it's 60, 70 years old, and that sucker still works. And I don't know if it's intentional or it's planned obsolescence, but they do not work, man. I've been very brand loyal to Samsung televisions, washer, dryer, freezers, and we've lost several refrigerators. We've lost washer dryers, to the point where Lowe's is like, hey, we're just going to write you a check. We don't even have a tech that'll come out and repair this under warranty. They're failing so much. And that's when we went and bought all the commercial True brand, which is the same stuff you see in Walmart and Dollar General. And man, that stuff, it might cost a little bit more. It didn't cost more. We had a Samsung refrigerator go out. Lowe's gave me a check for $3,200, $3,600, and we bought a dual door refrigerator and a single freezer, so triple door, and it was only $3,200 when we replaced them.
Yeah, we had a casualty yesterday, but the ice cream freezer I've had for many years finally decided its day had come, and it might be repairable. I don't know yet, but luckily Tactical had been doing a bunch of research on mechanically run appliances, so no computers, and spent about $400 more on a freezer than we would just a new freezer, because it doesn't have all of the little weird computer things that can go wrong. We'll see how that goes. And it's garage ready, so we'll see.
I got to step out for just a second.
Yeah, well, we're about to wrap up too. So
okay,
I'll just wrap it.
All right.
Okay, do your spiel.
John Willis, Special Operations Equipment. I do a live on this channel every night at 9 o'clock. Jump on. We can discuss whatever you want. SOE Tactical Gear is my website, and you can see all the products. We do a shirt every week. We do a lot of nylon load carriage system stuff. We got a couple podcasts that we do. I'm nearing 5,000 videos on this YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, MeWe, Locals Float. I'm everywhere. So jump on and interact with us tonight, 9 o'clock.
All right, guys. I'm Nicole from NicoleSauce.com and the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. And I will be starting at 6 p.m. tonight, the series of Night Before Christmas, every night until Christmas. And then next week, I have saved some Tuesday lives for my audio podcast from people John and I interviewed who are inspirational, like Karita Lee. And you can just check that all out at livingfreeintennessee.com. We will see you on the 2nd of January with Jack Spirko.
Awesome. See you guys.